You're watching LMCC.
Welcome to Westonka Memories. My name is Pam Myers and I volunteer with the Westonka History Museum. Today we're talking to Scotty Bjorlin, owner of Scotty B's restaurant in Mound. Welcome, Scotty.
Thank you.
Good to have you here today.
Thanks again. Good to be here.
We're interviewing local residents and business owners to hear about your history with us. And so you're in the restaurant business. How did you get into the restaurant business?
Well, that goes way, way back. The honest truth is I was sitting at home and watching soap operas, and my mom said, you know, you got to figure out what you want to do. This is after high school. And so I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, so I went to, decided to go to Votech to become a chef. Well, then it ended up translating and getting into food service management. And then I started working with Country Kitchen up in Superior, Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin?
Yep. Well, I was born and raised in Duluth. And so I was living in Duluth, but a buddy of mine said he could get me a job at the Country Kitchen over in Superior, which is just over the bridge. And so that's where I got started.
Super. And how did you get to us?
Okay, well, that's a roundabout story too. I was working at the Country Kitchen in Superior, and I got to be their best cook, so then they promoted me to assistant manager. Then they needed an assistant manager out in Vermilion, South Dakota.
Really?
So I moved out to Vermilion, South Dakota, and 18 years old, furthest I've ever been from home for any length of time, and I absolutely hated it. And so if I hadn't gotten transferred up to Hibbing, Minnesota, I probably wouldn't even be in the restaurant business today. So then they transferred me to Hibbing, Minnesota, and I ran that Country Kitchen for 4.5 years. Then from there, the owners of that establishment weren't treating me what I thought was real good, so I started looking around, and I moved over to Grand Rapids, Minnesota for 3 months. One of the best things that ever could have happened to me, because I worked for a gentleman there that taught me more in 3 months than I had learned in the previous 4.5 years working with the other company.
Wow.
So, because he was going to move to Florida, well, then he decided not to move to Florida. So then I started looking around again, and I ended up moving to Litchfield, Minnesota. I was out there for 2.5 years, where I met my now partner, Scott Price. He owns half of Scotty B's restaurant. And I was out there doing a really good job. Sales were really strong. And there was a gentleman down here in Mound area, Spring Park technically, that wanted to open a Country Kitchen down here. It was a closed unit. And he offered me to be 25% owner of this Country Kitchen if I moved down here and ran it for him. So that's how I ended up in Spring Park.
That's how
so
you
it's kind of boom, boom, boom all around.
So it was a closed unit. What does that mean?
Correct. It used to be a Country Kitchen, and the person that was owner-operator there didn't make it, and so they were closed for about a year. So it was a previous Country Kitchen.
So it wasn't open to the public when you
Correct. It was just a
came to town.
kind of quote boarded up building.
So, and when you opened that, did you open it as a Country Kitchen?
Yes. Yep. The gentleman that was my partner owned the Country Kitchen over in Excelsior, and so he decided he wanted to try and do another one since they were so close by. So when we opened, we were kind of sister stores.
And so you were there for a number of years and then changed location?
I was at Country Kitchen in Spring Park for 7.5, 8 years, something like that. And it's kind of a, again, roundabout story the way this other part happened. The gentleman that was my partner at the Country Kitchen, I was trying to, he was involved with the Da Vinci's in downtown Mound, which was, I'll get to that. he was involved with it as a consultant, and they were trying to get out from under it because sales weren't where they expected them to be. So he sat me down and offered to sell me the Da Vinci's. Well, I didn't have any money. I was, 23 years old, living paycheck to paycheck kind of guy. And he kind of was working the numbers. He's kind of a schmoozer, I guess. And he sat me down and told me that if he couldn't put this deal together, he was going to have to let me go, even though I was supposedly part owner. So anyway, I talked to the guy that did own the Da Vinci's and said, what's the scoop, blah, blah, blah. And he said this guy wasn't involved in it at all, technically. And so he and I ended up putting a deal together to buy the Da Vinci's as is. So basically what I did was take over their loan and reopened it as a family style / Scotty B's restaurant. So and that was 30 years and 6 months ago.
Wow.
So it's been a blessing.
For sure. So that was about what year? Can you say about what year that was?
1989. It was April 1st of 1989.
What do you like most about your job and what do you like least?
Okay, this is kind of a corny answer.
That's okay.
But I've used this line many, many, many times. Best thing about my job is people. The worst thing about my job is people.
I see.
So, I just love interacting with customers and employees. And it's kind of, I always go back to you being an educator. I always go back to when I was in kindergarten, first grade, they used to grade conduct, and I always got bad grades in conduct. And the teachers would write on my report card, Scott would do much better if he'd quit chatting with his neighbors and focus. And I want to go back to those teachers and say, see, it's an asset in my job now. So
it certainly is.
But it's been, that's my favorite part of the job. I really enjoy it. And the hard thing about it is people. It's more employees than it is people. Over the years, you have employees that just won't show up or things like that. So that can be frustrating. You get called in because someone's not there or whatever. But all in all, it's been a pleasurable experience. And getting to know the people of the Westonka area has been fabulous.
You are known around town to be a real community supporter. There isn't an event that happens that you're not right there sponsoring.
Thanks.
How did that become a priority for you?
Big part is through my faith, just because that's what I feel God calls you to do, but that was one of the things I wrote down. In a question later on, you'll cover it, but I might as well touch on it now. It's just, the question is how do you want to be remembered, but being generous. I think that as you do these things, the community just becomes a healthier thing. The more businesses / people that give, as giving to this historical society, everything becomes strengthened. And so the whole community ends up being a stronger community as people give back to the community.
Yep, I sure agree with that.
It's time and money, the things that, people can invest in their community.
Thank you for doing that.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Now, I interrupted your train of thought when you were moving from location to location. So there came a point where you left the Da Vinci's site and moved across the street.
Yep.
So tell me a little about that, how that happened.
That was a forced move. For those people that don't know, they were realigning County Road 15. You used to go right straight into downtown Mound, and it was then downtown Mound. And in realigning it, they were going to take out the building that we were in. And so, we had X amount of time to move. And it was kind of a weird situation because the building that we are now in was in the process of being built, but it wasn't necessarily going to be done by the time we were forced to move from our old location. So again, person, is living paycheck to paycheck kind of deal, still pretty young. And so, I didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't want to lose our own employees. So started looking at different towns maybe to move to. Waconia, Delano, Chaska. Those are 3 of the places we looked. And the timing of it all just ended up working out that they could delay tearing our building down in time for the new restaurant to be built.
Well, thank goodness.
It was, we were, again, felt blessed because we didn't necessarily want to have to start all over. I mean, if you have to, you have to. But then, you're talking all new employees because a lot of times people aren't going to want to make that drive once they realize. So it ended up being a good thing for us.
Terrific. Well, we're delighted to be able to keep you.
Well, thank you.
Tell me about one of your happiest memories in one location or another.
Let's see. Basically, the grand opening of the new restaurant, because the old one was, the building was older, it was very tired, and actually, Michael Marv, I thought you met him one time, maybe not, but anyway, he was just he lived over in Tonka Bay, and he came in and helped us remodel the old Scotty B's to be a family-style restaurant instead of a pizza place. And so, but everything still was, it was an older building and things were kind of run down.
Sure.
So then went to the new place. Our designer just did a fabulous job. And I still remember when I drove around the corner coming into the parking lot one night when things were still being produced, and she just put the pictures up originally, and the lights are just, a bright, bright color, and it just really just gave me a rush of, wow, look how cool that is.
That's
so
terrific.
that was very exciting. And when we first opened, it was just super, super busy. So it was a blessing being able to move in the long run, because especially in the crunch time, I was, going through some stress in between those two times. So
I can imagine. So you've lived through quite a number of changes right here in our community.
Oh yeah, big time.
What lessons do you think your work life has taught you?
That people are important. Probably the number one thing. Especially when I was younger, I was kind of a spaz.
No.
I'm sure if you call up some of my old employees and say, hey, how was Scott Bjorlin to work for? They'd have some stories, more so at Country Kitchen. And as time went on, I realized, what is important and what's not. And even back then, though, I will say, kind of sticking up for myself, even if I spaz, typically I would apologize after the rush, because even what I said was probably correct, but I'm sure the way I said it wasn't very nice. So, but I realizing that how important people are, and like we touched base on, the community. So, because that's, obviously people. And so as those things go on in life, you learn more and more, what is important and what is not. So.
For sure. Who were the people in the community that were most influential for you and your business?
Well, he'll be all proud of this. Bob Skinner. I don't know if you know the name or not. He's one that he used to own part of the Da Vinci's that we ended up taking over. And he told me once, he said that, I wish I had met you, like 5 years ago or before when they very first opened the Da Vinci's and had a partnership. But he taught me a lot. A lot of times I'd go to him for advice when trying to make a decision in the restaurant, important decisions. Then obviously my bankers.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. You have some special things on your menu. One of my favorite things is sauerkraut soup. Is that a family recipe? Is that something that you grew up with? Where did that come from?
That is cool that you bring that up, because I don't know if we ever talked about this or not. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But at the old location, we had a prep cook, Vicki Thamert was her name, and she was really talented in the kitchen. She came with the place when it was Da Vinci. She used to work at the Da Vinci's. So we used to have daily specials. Well, we still do have daily specials. And our lunch special or dinner special, I don't remember which it was Polish sausage and sauerkraut. And so you had a few leftovers, and in the restaurant business, you just can't throw leftovers away if you can create something out of them. And so she said she had a recipe for German sauerkraut soup, but it called for hamburger. And it's like, so she said, well, I can, take this and make this into the German sauerkraut soup recipe. And so she came up with that, and it was a hit the very first day, and we've had it it had to be like in the first year of when we opened. So we've had that soup for 30 years basically, and it is our number one requested soup.
No kidding.
It's not our number one seller because not everybody likes sauerkraut,
I suppose.
but it is our number one requested. When are you gonna have German sauerkraut soup? It's become so popular that we actually have quarts of it available frozen to go. And quick little story, since you brought it up, 3-4 days, a week ago, this young guy comes in and he's standing in the door, and I was doing something, and I heard him say to the server, what kind of soup do you have? He had already placed his order to go. And she said, clam chowder, German sauerkraut, garden vegetable beef, whatever they were. He goes, none of those sound good. And I happened to be walking by. I said, well, have you ever tried our German sauerkraut soup? He said, I don't like sauerkraut. I go, here, let me get you some. So I went and got a little small dish of it and brought it to him. He ended up ordering 2 bowls to go because it's one of those things, even though it's in the name, it's not overpowering, and it's like,
It's perfect.
it's a good soup.
It is indeed. So at the end of each of the interviews, I tend to ask the interviewee, how would you like to be remembered?
So, and we touched on this, being generous.
Well, you have...
I just hope that when I'm gone, that people remember me for a strong community supporter. Just that they could count on me. So a tiny little example of that is, since Halloween just went by, is on Halloween I give away cans of pop at home in our neighborhood, and I to this day have high school kids that will come up to me and say, hey, you guys gave away pop on Halloween. And so it's something that, so hopefully I create something in them through that. That's a small example of what I try and do in the restaurant, only on a bigger basis, that people remember Scotty B's. So, I mean, a certain amount of it, let's face it, is marketing, but I do think that, marketing aside, it's just a very important thing.
It absolutely is, and you're a model for us in the community. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing some of your history with the Historical Society. We will put the interview into our archives.
Okay.
And it will be available for future generations to see.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So my kids can watch it.
For sure, they can indeed.